Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cohen. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. Today's episode, we will be discussing the Union Street Cemetery. So, tell us about the history of the Union Street Cemetery.
This cemetery is in West Springfield, Massachusetts, and we're going to be talking about not only its history, but also many of the gravestones that are inside the cemetery, and then how well taken care of it is, and now and through the past centuries. And also, compared to other of the cemeteries in West Springfield, this is a very old community. It became a town in 1774, but this cemetery is from 1711, which means that it was started before it even became a town. And so thus, a lot of the pioneers of West Springfield are buried here. They were considered members of the community of Springfield for a very long time. So you have some ancient burials in here, a lot of brownstones, and in the 1711 it had a different name even. It was called the Old Metal Cemetery. It is the number one oldest burial ground in West Springfield. And finally, it's just off Church Street itself, near Union Street, of course. And it's not incredibly big, but then again, it's not very tiny either. And it has some very interesting gravestones within it, and we're going to talk about a lot of those along the way, including pastors, military men, and a lot of the stones are in great shape, including this two-table gravestone, which is always very interesting.
And tell us about the gravestones in the cemetery.
All right, a few of them that we might want to talk about are the Reverend John Woodbridge is here, and he was the first minister in West Springfield. And he died on June 10th, 1718, and the parishioners put a nice plaque up for him to honor him and all the great work he did. And you got to remember how hard it must be for the pioneers in all ways to get their homes going, to get their farms going, get their churches going, and it's very hard on these ministers too. And it gives on the back of that plaque a list of all the families. During the video that I took outside the cemetery, I listed all their names. Some of the highlights, of course, are the Ashley family, who have their own cemetery within West Springfield called the Ashleyville Cemetery. Then the Day family is very important. The Merrick family is very common. And in this cemetery, I also remember I told you there's two table gravestones. One is in very poor condition, but one is right next to it is in much better condition. That's the Merrick family itself. All right, also, there's a Daniel Merrick in here that died in 1784. Right, and for long term, there's the Day family, and the Day family is probably the most common pioneer family name in West Springfield. And for instance, there's the Major John Day buried here. He has a nice brownstone. And then there's also the Reverend Samuel Hopkins, and he has a great gravestone, and his has angel above with two wings, but below it looks like the collar of the angel is a minister's collar. So it's really nice to look at this, and it tells you right on his gravestone that he was very pious and sincere and benevolent and loved by all people around. Right, and then there's some military one, the Lieutenant Nathan Morgan, who died 1782. All right, and then towards the back, you're going to see silver gravestones. Now, the ones in the back are pointing towards the east, which is incorrect. They should be pointing towards the west. The reason why it turned around back there is that there's a building back there, and someone must have said, whoa, something wrong here, but actually it was right. Inscribed headstones should point towards the west.
And his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, is this cemetery currently well taken care of?
Yes, it is. It's a fenced-off one with a gate that you think is locked, but it's not. It's a nice latch to it, so it fools anyone except the people that really seriously want to go in. They'll say, oh, I can get that open. So you can go in there anytime you want. Now, it's well maintained also in the past, except for the fact that the Connecticut River is close at hand, and for that reason, and also the reason the West River is close at hand, those rivers must have flooded a lot over the past 300 years, and must have got into the cemetery, knocked stones over, displaced them, and so when maintenance workers went back in after that, they might not put the headstones up in the correct position. And so when you look at a headstone, don't think that your ancestor is really buried there. They're probably buried within 20 feet of that, but probably not right there anymore. So watch out for that. And also remember that these headstones should be pointing towards the west, the footstones should be pointing towards the east, and in general, they point either east or west, but some have been turned around to point towards the east. Now, a good thing is there's a lot of footstones left, which is good in any old cemetery. And since there's hardly any modern burials, anything past 1900 is very hard to find in a cemetery. That's a good sign, because no one attempted to say, hey, make this look like a lawn cemetery, a modern cemetery. What happened, people kept it the way it looked originally. And so you get a good look at a true cemetery, headstone, footstones along the east-west axis with the headstone pointing towards the west in general. So that's a wonderful thing about this cemetery.
And how does the cemetery compare to other cemeteries in West Springfield?
Now, in West Springfield, you have a lot of old cemeteries, so keep that in mind. You do have the 4 Jewish cemeteries, you do have the 1 Catholic cemeteries, but in terms of the Protestant cemeteries themselves, there's the Ashleyville, but that's more of a 1790 start date, right? Whereas this is 1711. There's the Meeting House Hill Cemetery next to the White Church, and that's an 1808 start date. Then there's the Park Street Cemetery, which is very, very old, but that's more of along the line of, I would say, about 1787 it started out. So that was 70 years later. And there's the Pawcatuck Cemetery, also, which is 1772. So this is by far over 60 years older than any other cemetery in West Springfield. So for that reason, it has a lot of the old brownstones, a lot of the old pioneers. Anyone that died in West Springfield prior to 1711 would have been buried at the old Springfield burial ground, which was moved to mostly into the Springfield Cemetery. So this cemetery is it for the pioneers. And that's why a lot of the names are recognizable to people that have lived in West Springfield. And so it's a great place to go visit. And I hope you go there and get a good lie of the land and get to see these old layouts of the tiny footstones and their gorgeous headstones. And whether you like history of West Springfield or if you like cemeteries, this is the greatest place to start in West Springfield.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in as well. And be sure to check out a large selection of our other podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to check out new videos and podcasts posted daily. And thank you for tuning in.